Hey, what's going on, you guys? It was a pretty good weekend. Some blowouts, some really good close games. Uh, we'll start. I'm a little late. It's Monday. I usually have this uploaded on Sunday. Had a little bit of a busy weekend, so we'll get right into it, and we'll start with New Mexico at Utah State. First half was a battle of field goals. Each team had two, so there was four altogether. But then in the second half, Utah State kind of found a rhythm for the first time this year, really on offense, and New Mexico struggled in the second half. Each team had two turnovers, but New Mexico's were at much more key times in the game where they needed to score. I believe they were down 27-13. They fumbled, and then very late in the game they threw an interception. So when you're down like that and you're trying to come back, you can't turn the ball over. So Utah State quarterback Andrew Peasley went 14 for 21, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He also had 11 carries for 118 yards and 1 touchdown. And the final 41-27 in favor of Utah State. Next game was UMass and Liberty. This game went pretty much exactly how I thought it was going to go. I knew Liberty was going to be upset. I know UMass doesn't have any kind of offense. I predicted this game to be 45-0. Liberty outgained the Minutemen 629 yards to 227 yards. Liberty at one point had scores on 4+ drives and then a field goal in the first half, so they scored on 5 straight drives. Malik Willis went 16 for 24, 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he also had 7 carries for 63 yards and a touchdown. Liberty's running backs, Peyton Pickett and Joshua Mack, they combined for 21 carries, 234 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Liberty picked up the win 45-0. So I gave UMass 3 more points than what they got. Next game is UCF at USF. USF played a lot better than I thought they would. If they had a better first half, who knows? Honestly, who knows? USF in the first half had 8 drives, and they only scored on 1 of those drives. Either it was a missed field goal, a punted, or whatever the turnover, whatever the case may be, but they only scored on 1 of 8 possessions in that first half. That already put them way behind. In the first half, UCF they had 7 drives and they scored on 5 of those drives. So much more efficient with the ball, and they capitalized on more possessions than USF. USF actually outgained UCF 646 yards to 577. USF owned time of possession. They had more first downs. So it was a very well played game by USF, and definitely not one of the best games by UCF. USF quarterback Jordan McLeod, he went 32 for 46, 404 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. That is by far his best performance of the season, easily. I'm not too sure about career-wise. USF running backs Kelly Joyner and Brian Beatty, they combined for 29 carries, 218 yards, and a touchdown. And USF wide receiver Bryce Miller had 11 receptions for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dylan Gabriel had 336 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. And Greg McCray and Batavius Thompson, they combined for 41 carries for 240 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Jacob Harris had 5 receptions for 110 yards and 3 touchdowns. And UCF gets the win to even up the series, and they won 58-46. Next game is Wyoming at UNLV. Wyoming's run game dominated this game. It's really what won them the game here. They rolled up 399 yards on the ground. Valladay got him started on the second play of the game, going for a 78-yard touchdown, untouched pretty much. UNLV was held to only 290 yards of offense, 6 punts, an interception, and a fumble included in all that. So that's not going to win you games. Wyoming running back Trey Smith, he had 24 carries for 164 yards and a touchdown. And Wyoming linebacker Chad Muma had 10 total tackles, 3 sacks, and 3.5 tackles for loss. And Wyoming gets the win 45-14. Next game is Central Michigan at Eastern Michigan. A huge fourth quarter for the Chippewas boosted them to a win here. They scored 25 points in the fourth quarter. Lou Nichols had 2 scores himself. An interception by Devontae Reed helped Central Michigan go up 31-23 with 1:43 remaining in the game. EMU finished with 5 turnovers, and Central Michigan running back Lou Nichols III had a career day. Actually, he had 29 carries for 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, and helped his team win 31-23 in favor of Central Michigan. And now we move to Northern Illinois at Western Michigan. Dwayne Eskridge was the difference in this game, the pure difference. He had a 100-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. He also had a big reverse play to set up the game-winning field goal. He had a 57-yard play that resulted in the next play scoring. He didn't score it, but he set up the game-tying touchdown. Northern Illinois, they had 40 minutes of time of possession. Like I said, the big plays from Western Michigan. In my preview, I said I liked the big playability of Western Michigan, and that obviously came about if Northern Illinois held the ball for 40 minutes. Dwayne Eskridge, he had 1 carry for 27 yards on that reverse I talked about. He had 7 receptions, 134 yards, 100-yard touchdown return. I'm going to say he was the key factor in this game, and Western Michigan gets the win 30-27. Next game is Kent State at Buffalo. There's literally one and only one thing to talk about for this game, and I won't talk about anything else in this game. Jarrett Patterson, 36 carries, 409 yards, and 8 touchdowns. You know, if it was like 36 carries, 409 yards, I'd be like, wow, that's crazy. 8 touchdowns? Whew. I mean, he was set to break an NCAA record, and then his coaches pulled him mid-drive. I understand that you don't want him to get hurt, but let the kid go out there and break the record. I mean, not a lot of people get a chance to do that. So he had it in his grasp. Coaches didn't let him get it. It's okay, though. Buffalo wins 70-41. Georgia Southern at Georgia State. Good game as expected for me. Georgia State trailed 24-13 in the fourth quarter, but after scores from Destin Coates and Cornelius Brown, Noel Ruiz kicked a 35-yard field goal with 1:53 left in the game. And then Quavion White had an interception that sealed the deal for the Panthers. Georgia Southern running back Logan Wright had 8 carries for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. Georgia State quarterback Cornelius Brown, he had also a career high of 372 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Georgia State wide receivers Sam Pickney and Cornelius McCoy had 15 receptions, 237 yards, and 1 touchdown combined. And Georgia State got a 30-24 victory. Next game is Miami of Ohio at Akron. Miami of Ohio really dominated, as expected. Akron is a very weak team. Miami of Ohio totaled in 416 yards and only gave up 145. Not much more to go on in this game. Congratulations to Miami of Ohio on their 700th program win. They're actually the first MAC team to reach 700 wins as a program, so congratulations to them. Miami of Ohio quarterback Brett Gabbert went 18 for 27, 308 yards, 4 touchdowns. He also had 4 carries for 48 yards. Jack Sorensen had 8 receptions for 177 yards and 4 touchdowns. And Cameron Butler had 5 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 pass defense, and 1 QB hurry. And Miami, Ohio walks through Akron 38-7. Next game is number 20 Coastal Carolina at Texas State. As expected, Coastal didn't have too much of an issue in this game. Coastal had 572 yards of offense. They gave up 318, and they only allowed Texas State 13 first downs. Texas State only hit 40% on third down. Brady McBride played pretty well. He only had 6 incompletions. He went for 202 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. Grayson McCall, nothing over the top this weekend. 11 for 18, 154 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. And you gotta love that if you're Coastal Carolina or a fan or whatever you may be, because even when Grayson McCall isn't putting up crazy numbers, they're still winning with ease. And CJ Marable, he had 16 carries for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. And their defensive end, Taron Jackson, had 6 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, and 3 tackles for loss. Coastal Carolina wins 49-14. Louisiana at UL Monroe. It's funny because I had Louisiana scoring 55 points, and at the end I said 55 might be a little overkill because they're a little sluggish at times. Well, apparently not. ULM turned the ball over 3 times. Louisiana had 511 yards of offense, only gave up 247 yards. Levi Lewis went 18 for 25, 147 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 5 carries for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. Trey Regis and Elijah Mitchell combined for 19 carries, 188 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Zion Hill had 6 total tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss, and Louisiana wins 70-20. Next game is South Alabama at Arkansas State. Good game, but either team could have won this game. Arkansas State just couldn't finish. Their last 3 drives resulted in a punt and 2 turnover on downs, so they couldn't finish strong. Arkansas State quarterback Logan Bonner went 11 for 16, 183 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. John Adams Jr., of course, did his thing, 9 receptions for 138 yards and 2 touchdowns. Desmond Trotter went 16 for 22, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. And their wide receiver Jalen Tolbert had 10 receptions for 252 yards and 3 touchdowns. And South Alabama gets the win 38-31. Next game is Memphis at Navy. Honestly, this doesn't look well for either team here. On one side, if you're Navy, Memphis hasn't had the greatest defense this year. Against other D1 opponents for Memphis was giving up 24 or more points a game. And in 4 games, they gave up 30 or more. So they give up a lot of points this year, a lot of yards this year. On the other side of things, if you're Memphis, this is a pretty poor Navy defense, banged up Navy defense, and you only come away with 10 points? I mean, you won the game, but 10 points? Not to mention, Navy outgained Memphis, 321 yards to 280 yards. Navy fullback Nelson Smith had 29 carries for 142 yards and a touchdown. And Brady White went 18 for 32, 205 yards and a touchdown, and Memphis wins 10-7. Next game is Appalachian State at Troy. I do believe Troy is descending as a team. They look worse and worse every week. Appalachian State, they had their way, 554 yards. Troy was only able to collect 13 first downs, 231 yards, and they gave up 1 turnover. Zach Thomas went 22 for 29, 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Cameron Peoples had 10 carries for 95 yards and a touchdown, and Malik Williams had 7 receptions for 113 yards and a touchdown. And Appalachian State wins easy 47-10. Last game is Nevada at Hawaii. Both teams played very well. Nevada was able to cut the lead 24-21 with 5.5 minutes left. But Hawaii got the ball and they never gave the ball back. They killed 5.5 minutes and that was it. Carson Strong had only 5 incompletions, 168 yards and 2 touchdowns. Toa Tua had 20 carries for 131 yards and a touchdown. Siobhan Cordeaux really played well, 26 of 32, 246 yards, 1 touchdown. He also had 15 carries, 62 yards, and 1 touchdown. Siobhan Cordero is improving every week. Good for him. And Darius Masau had 14. It was my player to watch. It was 14 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. And Hawaii picks up the win 24-21. And that does it for the week. There was a lot of cancellations as I expected. Just be grateful and thankful for, any game we get to watch over the weekend. I hope everyone had a good Thanksgiving. That wraps up week 13. We'll go into week 14. And we'll see you then.